you'd be able to click that. All right, so now we said who's using web components. Google, like I said, are really invested in it. They have actual like tools to create web components. Salesforce, they actually have their own like web component system called Lightning Web Components that they use to build out their applications off of it using LWC. We showed Twitter before, like the Twitter widget. YouTube has them all throughout their pages. GitHub for the time ago, like little text that shows. EA, for people that may not know, is a pretty large game developer. And they have, at that time, 22 studios with like over 10,000 people in like 30 locations worldwide. And then they have various game titles. So you may be familiar with like NBA Live, Star Wars, The Sims, Battlefield, etc. And but the projects, when they were building the different like promotional sites, they would have different teams just kind of like going off on their own, and it didn't feel like it was a cohesive unit. So like one would have like a huge banner, one would have a smaller banner. So as a user, it was kind of difficult to be able to navigate throughout the sites because things were just kind of moving all over the place, just kind of like how the slides were just now. So they created a design system to kind of build a cohesive feel. Now you're able to customize them and give it your own like style, but things were kind of like a little bit more uniform. So it's a lot better for the user who's browsing this pages. Because imagine you go to like a website and then every page you go to, it's something random, like the buy button or what have you kept moving or what have you, or like the back to go back to the home, like that just kept moving, kind of, it'd be frustrating. So they created a design system to kind of keep everything in line and focused. Now, have you ever used the video elements? You know, it's kind of amazing that just by putting the video tag with a source, you have a full-fledged video player.
Yeah.
You have the like play button, you have the mute, you actually get like the time that the video's been playing, you can full screen, and then you can even also have like this little more options menu. Same thing with the audio. It's kind of cool that you can just mute, like all that's built in just from the audio tag. And then the detail tag, I'm a big fan of using tags that are actually like built in to the browser. So instead of trying to create a whole thing where I'd have to listen for a click thing and then show it, this just does it automatically, the details tag. So if you haven't heard of it before, now you have. It's pretty, I think it's criminally slept on. So yeah. Alrighty. Now this web component kind of blew my mind the first time I saw it. This is a web component from Model Viewer, also from Google. And so like you can place 3D models. I wouldn't imagine how much like work as far as like WebGL, 3D modeling, all these things. If you check out the website, see, here's another model. And so this is actually Neil Armstrong's suit when he went to the moon. And so they did a 3D model of it. You can even see like space, like in the reflection. It's very, very detailed and super cool.
Give me a new one.
So now, as you can see, it says that you can easily display interactive 3D models on the web and in AR.
You could have told me this stuff.
I didn't realize the time was gone.
Oh, hey, Eris, I don't think you're muted. Eris, be careful what you say. You're not muted.
Okay.
Look at the detail. And all it is just this tag, Model Viewer. That's pretty amazing. And so you can see it's just the tag and then the little bit of JavaScript to let the browser know what to do with that tag. All right, so we're gonna get into more of that later. But yeah, just like first time I saw that, I thought it was amazing. And so it led me to actually it gave me inspiration to create something in AR. I'm a big fan of like WebXR, which is mixed reality. So it's both VR and augmented reality. And so I created a WebXR tic-tac-toe game to where you can see the board in the real world. And then you can see I have my like tablet here. So I'm going to play a video of it playing back and forth. And so you can see there, it's like a 3D model that I can move around and flip around and everything. And so I'm going to make the first move. You see how it showed up in both areas. One in like the real world AR, and then the other one is virtual. So you can see I just tap there. And what's cool is I could just tap the little dots and those will place my moves there. As you can see, you can go back and forth. And I was able to do that. I was able to build off of the model viewer and get that done in like a week about. And so I use Microsoft 3D Paint to actually create the X's and O's and the actual game board. And then about to do the winning move. And there you go. And then you can reset the game. And as you can see, right here towards the bottom, you can enable audio. So you're able to speak with the person you're playing with. All right, and I also have, I made this website. So if you wanted to play that, you can go to xoxr.games. All right. Now, as you can probably tell, I like to make websites. A lot of websites. And kind of like with EA, but not to their scale. Sometimes I want to have a certain like element for each site. And since I create things in different like frameworks and different libraries and stuff, it would be great if I could have something that would be able to work in all of them. And so like my main problem, so that's how I feel when I'm like, oh, I've got to add this same thing that was in here. So the thing that I really wanted to be able to do was to show what I used to create that website. And so I wanted to be able to have just a little element there that you can see like what the site's about, what I made it with, any updates, and then for more information, you can do that. So what I did was I created a web component. I called it Dwane-made, and you'll see it on a bunch of my sites. And I did that so because it's reusable. And then so what's happening is that data is being fetched from an endpoint from the project. So the project that it's on, it knows like there's a certain endpoint to be able to get the information. And then it just populates these spaces with whatever's in the database that I have. Cool. Now, what I also like about is not just reusable, but can also, you can have the same component to do multiple things, multiple different types of things. So it's almost like a Swiss Army knife. Now, have you ever wondered how the input tag, just by changing the type attribute, it can do so many different things? Like you can enter in text. You can have a range of things. We have the radio. You can pick a date and time. We also have the button, of course, a checkbox. Now, this one has always been cool to me, like the color picker. Like, imagine what you'd have to do to be able to create this on your own. But all you have to do is just input, type color, and then you have it. Imagine having to be able to select all this and then getting all that. So yeah, the web is an amazing place and super powerful. All right, and then you can also choose a file as well. So yeah, all that is coming from one element. So that got me thinking. I was like, oh, what's a thing that I'm always like having difficulties with, but I want to kind of use it in different scenarios, have it, multiple uses. So time, if you've ever tried to do time on the internet, it can be a thing. So I decided, all right, I'm just going to sit down and I'm just going to create a component that I can always reuse. And so you can see here that this the Sunday, February 20th, 2022, the clock here, the countdown timer, this one here, even on this site, there was the when the actual event was going to happen. And I have another website I created that helps you find Twitter Spaces. And so each one of them has like the time that the Twitter Spaces are scheduled to start. And what's cool is that it not only shows the time, but I can also, by passing in an attribute, make it count down. So it can turn into a countdown timer. So I can set, like, normally I set for like an hour. So once it reaches the hour countdown, it will go from being like text to being an actual countdown timer without me having to do anything. And then when it reaches 0, I can also listen for an event and change things. So that's why it says like live now, because that timer reached 0, it sent the event, and then I listened for the event in my application, and I switched it out with live now. And so it's kind of amazing what you can do with just one element once you put some time and planning into it. Now, if you want to check out some more examples and some other collections, you can MDN, Mozilla Developer Network, has like a GitHub repo full of things, all sorts of web components, and some that aren't even like custom elements. We'll talk about that as well. Some of them are just extending regular elements. Like there's an here it is, the expanding list web. So you see, it's not even like a new element, kind of like how there's editable list, and edit word. They're just extending the UL, and it's saying it is expanding list. So you don't even have to go as far as having to think of a name. You can just expand what's already there. So they have a whole lot of cool examples you can check out. Also, another good website is Webcomponents.org. And this is kind of like one of the places where you can get all sorts of information on web components. And so, like I said, you can discuss and share web components. So you can also, it's like a repository of different elements. So if you ever want to look for any sort of type of thing, so let's say emoji, you're looking for an emoji web component. So you can see there's emoji rain, emoji Unicode emoji picker, another picker, and there's a slider, I guess. And so there's all these different things. And then they also give you a lot of good information on how to get started, what needs polyfills, and then kind of like the browser support. We'll also talk about that a little bit later as well. And yeah, cool. So that is webcomponents.org. You can check that out later. All right, and I was going to say, our web components getting cooler, but I can't hear you, or so. I don't know if there's there's like a chat or something. Maybe put it in there, but we'll see. Cool. Alrighty. So let's talk about what actually. So we spoke about who's making web components and using web components. Let's talk about what it takes to make a web component. Now, there's certain browser technologies that, when combined, can make a web component, and by definition. And so there's the custom elements, the shadow DOM, and HTML templates. All right, so custom elements. Now, a rule is that it must include a hyphen or a dash. It's called a kebab case. So you see how there's like that little hyphen in between? That's a kebab case. But you can't have any single words. And the reason for that, I believe, is that you would have people like trying to use like H1 or what have you, or the P tag. And then if it was allowed to be able to have just like a single word, a lot of those things would probably get used and mess it up for everybody, kind of thing. So it has to be, it can't be single words. So it could be like 2. The most I've seen is probably like 3 or 4. And so, but yeah, do what you do, but it just can't be 1. All righty. And then a class object that defines the behavior. So what you do is you say like, hey, there's this class and I'm defining what this element is going to do. And so that kind of gives you this the structure for doing it. So because there's like the super, I don't know if you're familiar with like React. React uses like super, and so that kind of just is based kind of like off of that as well. It's a thing that is in the browsers with classes. It's just a thing. All right, cool. And then also, like I showed before with that element, the expanding list, kind of like extending the UL that's native to the browser. Yeah, it just says you can extend any elements, native elements. So like a button. So if you wanted a button that has all the functionality of the button, but you wanted to add something on top of it, you can extend the button and build on top of that for what it is that you're trying to do. All right, cool. So that's what that's saying. And then again, I have links to everything, so you can check it out on MDM for more information. All right, so now we got the shadow DOM. Now the shadow DOM, you can think of it almost like the nether realm. It's almost kind of like a whole like pocket in space. It's kind of like an alternate universe sort of. And so what that does, it provides encapsulation for your elements. And like Paul Lewis said, it helps contain the gross. So instead of having all your code out there, you can take the most important parts that the code needs and put it together in an element and then ship that. And whereas the end user doesn't need to see all the different things that went into making the element, they just need the tag now. And I'll show an example that I got to work on also a little bit later. Now, what's also cool is that a click event, I mean, that doesn't really tell you much, like, oh, something got clicked, but what was it? Like, what did it do? Now, by using the shadow DOM, so anything that's clicked within your component, you can use the shadow DOM to remap it or rename it to something a little bit more meaningful. So we'll see a little bit later. So like if you're making a guess on something and somebody clicked a button, well, I mean, listening for a click is fine, I guess. But then listening for a guess would be much more meaningful, and I think it'll give it a little bit more like structure to kind of be like, all right, I need to listen for guesses, not just clicks, kind of thing. So, all right. Now for the third one, HTML templates. Now this is cool. Like I didn't know about this before started diving into web components, and so I'm not sure how many people are familiar with like the template tag. Now the template tag, the content within it is not rendered by the browser until you want it to be rendered. So the browser will see the template tag and just skip over it. It's like, oh, I don't need to know about this. It's a template tag. Why do I care? Like I will be told when to care about this template tag and when to render it. And so in it, you can define the HTML structure like up front and then clone it when you need it. So that's how you let the browser know like, oh, hey, I want you to pay attention to this now. Because with JavaScript, you can clone it and then place it in the DOM. And so that way the browser knows like, oh, okay, now I can pay attention to this. And it's used to efficiently render HTML and update it when the user interacts with our web component. And so by using the template, it makes it, since it's not like I guess super heavy, because again, the browser kind of doesn't pay attention to it, you can do things to it and then use JavaScript to put it into the DOM. So I think that's kind of similar to how like React works with like the virtual DOM. So from what I understand, like React will take like a copy of the DOM tree of your application and then put that in a virtual DOM, do all the calculations in it, and then remap it on top of your application, like just changing the things that changed from when it made the copy kind of thing, right? So I think it could be similar to how the templates work. So you could go make changes to the template. The browser doesn't care because it's like, it's a template. I don't have to worry about it. But once you add it to the DOM, that's when it starts to actually like to pay attention to it. All right, then for complex templates, we'll see it may be easier because there's a lot of boilerplate. And so it may be easier just to use a framework or a tool, but that's really up to you. And so I'll show you a site where you can see all the different ways to create a web component. And there's probably a good chance you'll find one that kind of like speaks to you. All right, next. Now here's an example. It's just a vanilla JavaScript example. I think I probably should make that bigger. All right, so let's take a look at the HTML. Now, so I realize people may not know what GOAT is, but greatest of all time is not like the animal or anything. So greatest of all time group is what I'm looking for here. And so you can see there's the title. Let's see of the page. Here we go. So then who's the greatest group of all time? You can see that there. And then I have this input, which is group sub input, which is this here, right? Along with the submit button. Now the actual web component that we created is this goat hyphen group. Now I don't know about you, but I've never come across a goat hyphen group before. And so that is the web component that I created. Let's see. Oh, and then you can also see I have in here, there's things called slots. They're kind of like you have the template on the outside, and then you're able to slot in things by using the slot tag. And so you can name the slot. So if you want, it doesn't matter where it is in the template, as long as you name the slot that you want to go into, it'll go there, regardless of wherever it is. So it's kind of a cool way to be able to just pass in data, but just know that it's going to be where it is. So so you see the GOAT group. So the little thinking face, so that's being passed into a slot. And then you will see in the JavaScript where that goes. But you can tell here it's at the top. All right, so now, I'm basically just getting a bunch of references. So you can see I'm querying the actual input, the button, and then I'm listening for an event. I added an event listener for a click on the button. And so what that's going to do is going to, console log button clicked, but it'll also set the attribute guess to the value that's in the input. Because again, if you look at the GOAT group component, we have an attribute called guess. And again, I've never seen guess as an attribute. So that's something custom to our elements. All right, cool. All right, so yeah, so then you see I set the value. So I'm saying the attribute guess to the value that was put into here. And then I'm clearing the value once you do that. Now, I'm listening for an event on the window that says guest, because remember, I'm basically taking that click and then turning it into guest that I can listen for. And right there, so I'm listening for the click, which sets the attribute to guess. And so I'm listening for the guest, we will see later, but I'm doing an alert. So a little dialogue will pop up with the detail. All right, well, I'll show you where we do that. All right, so then, yeah, so here again is that template that we were talking about for. So I'm creating a template tag, and I'm setting the inner HTML of that. So the slot, again, is whatever is placed in between the tags, the start tag and the end tag. And so in my case, it's a little thinking face. So that's why that will go there. Let's see. Then there's also going to be an H1 tag, and there's an ID called verdict on a div. Now, so the HTML is the HTML element is the base class. It's kind of like the generic. It's just like an HTML tag. It's not specific at all. And so it powers other native elements because like it's the baseline. Everything is kind of built up from there. So for things like inputs, buttons, videos, etc., they're all based on that HTML element because that is like the base class, right? So that's what we're doing here. We're extending it. Now, if it's just like one element, it was like the button or what have you, we could have extended an HTML button element, I think is what it's called. And then so here we're setting what attributes we want to listen for. So we only have the one attribute guest. So you can see here the static get observed attributes, and we're returning guests. There's an array of all the different things that you want to listen for, but we're just saying, hey, we only have one, so we just want this guest. So it's a single element array. Now here is some of that stuff we were talking about before as far as like custom elements, the things that kind of help you scaffold everything. Because again, see, it's in a class. And with the class, there's things like the static get, there's the constructor, which kind of like creates it. And so super, it gets all the HTML element goodness, like the methods and the properties, and it applies it to your component. So that way you're not starting from very, very scratch. You're starting off from some sort of foundation that you can build upon. And then here we are working with the template tag. Because remember, up till now, the browser does not care about what's happening with the template tag. So what we're going to do is we're going to clone it. And so we're importing the node, which is the content from it, and we're saying that's true. And so we're just saying that you can clone the template tag so we can use it. Let's see. Using the shadow DOM, right? We're attaching that element to the shadow DOM, and we're allowing it to be open. And it's either open or closed. And open allows for the outside application to interact with your element via the shadow DOM. Let's see. Cool. And then you're appending that actual thing from that clone to the shadow root in the shadow DOM. And then that is what lets the browser like, oh, okay, you're serious about this now. And then, so then you add an event listener to the click. And what that's going to do is going to style the text to red. Okay. So now go back to HTML. I want to show you something really quick, because unless you really wanted to, your styles are encapsulated within the web component, right? So you see here, this H1 tag, H1, who's the greatest group of all time? It's green, right? From the CSS here, H1 green. Okay, so anything in the outside application is going to be green. But what happens is if we, I was going to say, like, if somebody could give me a name of like a band or what have you, if you wanted to guess, but I'm going to say Run DMC. Now, is Run DMC the greatest group of all time? DMC. I actually tried to spell out M. So let's find out. Nope. So again, that is coming. Remember, we're listening for the event listener guest. And guest is coming from, I didn't show the actual, but also, by the way, this is a callback, connected callback. And so this is a lifestyle hook that gets called every time your element is added to the DOM or to the page. And it can be called multiple times. So be kind of careful with what you have in there. So you can see I console log that, hey, the group got connected to on the site, like everything is flowing well. And I have the color to blue, which is this here. Right? Now, it was called when the attribute was changed. Because remember, when I put in Run DMC here and hit submit, that then turned the input into guess, which we spoke about up. Where to go? Oh, where to go? Where it turns the, oh, it was up here because it was done in the light DOM. That's right. Oh, that's another thing. The outer application is in the light DOM. Everything inside of your component is the shadow DOM. Let's see here. So yeah, so you can see right here, listening for the click, button click. I'm taking the value that's in here, and I'm setting the attribute to guest. Now, when I set the attribute to guest, then that fires off this, the observed, where to go? The attribute change callback. And so we have the name, which is, I believe, guess. Then we have the old value and the new value. Before it was nothing, but now it changed to Run DMC. So that fires this off. And then it tries to kind of make sure to make it's not just an empty space that you're submitting. So that won't work, right? All right. Let's see here. Yep. Okay, cool. Oh, and then what we're doing here is that the shadow root before, if you want to select something inside of it, like for example, verdict, and verdict is coming from that template that we set up before. So you can see right here, ID verdict. So what we did is we cloned it, and then we're going to use it. And so, yeah, so I'm saying the inner text. And now, if the new value to lowercase is equal to outcast, because outcast is the greatest group of all time, it will then put the inner text to being all uppercases with a lot of exclamation points. So let me show you that. Outcast. So, yep. And then you see here, you're right, outcast, all sorts of exclamation points. So yeah, so you can see here, this is the H1. You see it's blue, whereas the H1 that's on the outside is green. And that's because everything is kind of encapsulated. It contains the gross, like Paul Lewis said. And then you're right. So that comes from, so after I set everything to uppercase and add the exclamation points. So you see here, we also have, we're changing the inner text of the verdict, which is this element here again. And then saying you're right, if it's equal to that, we're going to dispatch a new custom event called guest. And the details of it, which is cool, you can actually submit and create your own. Detail yup, which is what you saw pop up, because remember detail? Up here, we were listening for the guest, which that thing just launched. And so now we have the alert of e.detail, which again is yup. Oh, there's nothing in there. So outcast. Yeah, so it has to change, because otherwise it was the same outcast. But yeah, so once you clear it out, so then yep, there we go. All right, cool. Now, again, if we click anywhere, it's going to turn it red, as you can see here. Let's see. We spoke about the connected callback. But as you can see, there's a lot of like boilerplate to this. And so you see, you kind of have to like go through a lot just to be able to get that thing to pop up as a modal thing, as a, yeah. Oh, and then here, we're also, so we're sending out, this is where you're sending that custom event out of your web component. And we're calling it guest, and we're giving it the details, and we're saying that it bubbles true, which means it goes up through the component and into like the DOM tree. And then you kind of where you want it to stop. Cool. Oh, and then if you're ever like disconnected from the page, or you leave the page or what have you, the disconnected callback will fire, and it was, you can do whatever you want. You can console log or send an email or what have you. And then it all gets tied together with custom elements .define. And we're taking goat-group and calling it the class name, which is goat group. Where's the template? Yeah, goat group. So yeah, so you can see it here. The query selector for it. Listen for the click. All right, I think that's it. So you can again see how the color changed because we clicked on it, but it still stayed within the web component. It didn't go outside and affect the green text that's on the outside. All right, cool. So now, kind of like a general overview of everything. You have the user's application on the outside here, everything that's like in the white. Then you place in your custom elements. And then from there, you're able to pass in different properties and attributes. And even the outside can call methods that you make are public from outside onto your component. And so all that's being put into it, and what's coming out are custom events. Because again, you can change, you can remap like the meaning of the original by kind of changing the actual event. So it's not just a click event or a press or whatever. It's something that's meaningful to the application. All right. So again, properties, attributes in, along with methods that can be called on the outside, and then out that the user application, the outer application can listen for are custom events. So it's a nice like little loop there. You can check that out. All right. Cool. Now, I had another thing here, and I wanted to know if y'all thought web components were still cool, but yeah, I'll have to figure that out for the next one. All right, now let's talk about tools. Now, really quickly, since you can't check it out anyway, maybe if you could let me know in the chat room, how many ways, different ways are there to create a web component? You let me know in the chat here, I guess, in the video. And then see, the thing is, I don't know, there's a delay or something. So yeah. Okay, well, I'm just gonna keep going. So the answer, according to webcomponents.dev, a great site, is that you actually have 58 ways right now to be able to create templates. And so what webcomponents.dev do, I'm not sure how many people are familiar with like CodePen and things like that, something where you just kind of like want to start up a quick little project or what have you. You may go to like CodePen, like, oh, I just need something with HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Let me just do that real quick, kind of thing. So you can code your component in isolation, kind of like how you can have different code pens, like, but they're not talking with each other. So it's kind of like your own little space to be able to create web components. And then you can actually push your code if you want it to be a part of something bigger. They support GitHub and GitLab. Also, you can publish your package because, again, remember NPM, we spoke about that earlier. You can do that right from webcomponents.dev. So you don't really need an NPM because it'll be under their name. And we'll talk about that as well. And then you can deploy web pages. They're actually like GitHub pages from it. So it's kind of cool stuff. All right. So then you can see here are some of like the templates. So we kind of already saw like an HTML element one. I will show you again what one looks like, but they have all these different ones. I've used lit, which is what we're going to use today as well. Fast, I believe, is from Microsoft. Haunted, I've heard that one before. Here's the one that Salesforce created and handle. A lot of people may not know that you can actually create web components with Preact. You can also create web components using Angular. I don't think you can with a React yet, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But Vue, I believe you can also create a web component. And my favorite, Svelte, you can actually create custom elements with that. But also, what I've also played around with was Stencil. And Stencil is a pretty cool tool as well. So you can, I'll show you what you can do, but let's take a look at all the different types here. So you can see these are the ones that HTML element based, just like how we extended HTML element. These are doing the same thing. Also for any Tailwind fans, you can actually use, there's elements that you can use within it. So if you like Tailwind, you can just like pop in an element and it'll just do what it do. Now there's a few of them I haven't seen before. Apra, I'm not sure, but there's a lot of different ways to be able to. Heresy, I've heard that one before. Hyper HTML is actually one of the first like libraries I used to create a web component, like way back in the day. And then so we have all these different things. And so what's cool is you're able to just click on it and it will just scaffold. It will just create a project in that like library on how to do it. So you can see the structure of what it takes to build a web component with that framework, library, whatever you want to call it. Web component creator. So you can see there's a whole bunch of stuff. And then there's different compilers and things, because Svelte is actually like a compiler where it takes your code, compiles it into like, I guess as close to the like byte language. So that's why it's so quick. And then also, like I said, you can use Angular, Preact, React, Vue, Vue 3 to kind of like create web components. But some of them, you still kind of need to use the framework that you created it in. So it's kind of, it's there. All right. So now let's take a look at what happens when you click the just regular HTML plain JS one. So again, here we go. See, we have the template like we spoke about before. And so we're creating it. We're setting, again, the inner HTML to some HTML. Cool. Then we're doing the style. So you can see we got the style stuff there. Cool. Look like they're for the buttons. Yep. And then, so now we're putting IDs to the buttons. So button ID DEC for decrement is this one here. Then we have the one that counts, which is this center one, the actual number. And then we have the increment, which is this one here with the plus sign. So we extend the HTML elements. We're calling it my counter. So that's the web component. That's the name you will place. Well, not really. There's, hyphens, because again, we can't have one word, but that'll be the name that you kind of use for it to kind of reference it. Let's see. Okay, then again, we're doing the super in the constructor to kind of get all the goodness from HTML elements so you can build on top of that. We're setting the count to 0, and then the attaching the shadow DOM mode for like open. Cool. Now, connected callback. So once this thing is connected and loaded, there's a few things we want to be able to do. So we're going to append the template content, right? And we're cloning it. That's what clone mode means. And then doing the same thing for the increment and the decrement. We're just kind of updating it every time it goes through. Because if it's like a list, and if you don't keep up with it with the buttons, you may the list may get too long to try and keep up, or you'll just like run out of things to do, So yeah, all right, cool. So then we have a discount. Cool. Oh, you're incrementing the town there with a vote. And then we have the count again. Let's see. Oh yeah, okay, screen's very bright. So then the root, the shadow root, the ID of court, you get the inner HTML, you can get the count as well. That's pretty cool. Let's see. Yeah, so you see we got the element by ID in the shadow root that's within the web component. We got it. We do the inner HTML, and then it comes out as count. Cool. All right. Let's see here. And then again, we have the custom elements.define. And because until you do that, your thing is just some random bits of characters that were placed in HTML, and it doesn't know what to do with it. And so, yeah, so define my counter as my counter, the class. So you're kind of like binding them, right? Because this has like all the powers of stuff before. Where'd it go? But yeah, like that one can do a lot of things. And my mouse, here we go. So yeah, so you're just kind of binding the element that you're calling it my counter with my counter, the class. Where'd it go? Class, here we go. So you see my counter. All righty, cool. And then, it goes up and down. Actually goes negative, which is cool. All right, cool. So that's that one. Now, along with the tooling, there's a service online called Open Web Components. And what they want to be able to do is, like we saw before, there's like 58 and growing number of ways of creating web components. If you have a team, that could be kind of disjointed, just like with EA, having people create web components in different ways, and then hoping that they'll be able to be merged into a bigger application. And so with Open Web Components, they're giving you all the guides, the docs, and best practices of creating and using web components. And so, so you can see here, Open Web Components provides guides, tools, and libraries for developing web components. Cool. Let's see here. So yeah, so these are the folks behind it. Div Riots. Let's see here. Yeah. Oh, well, no, well, they're a part of it because they supported it, basically. And then, like I said, Google has been like pretty active in the web component space. So there's that. And then a bunch more people. Cool. Now, another place. Now you have your component on your computer and it's running fine, great. But you want to send it to your friend to maybe use in theirs. How do you do that? Well, you have to upload it to npmjs.com. And I'm not sure how many people are like familiar with it, but anytime you do like npm install something, it's coming from npm.js. And there's also similar like yarn. It's just a repository that you can like pull information from and then have it also install in other packages that rely on it. So yeah, all right, cool. If you have any questions, just free to let me know. Now, we have our thing in the cloud, but how do we get it to our application? One way is to install it. Again, with the npm install, it will pull the files from npm.js.org. And but let's say you're in a place where you can't do that. You're coding like in CodePen. There's no way to install libraries from npm, at least not that I've seen. And so kind of a way around that is to be able to take those same files that you're downloading and then place them in the cloud, and so that you can use them whenever you want. And that's what a CDN is, a content delivery network. Its main purpose is to send you content. You know, one second down can mean like a lot of a heartache, you know. Cool. So I named a few of them here: JS Deliver, Skypack, and Unpackage. All right, so you can check out which one you like more. Now, let's build something, shall we? All right, so what we're going to build is a keypad element that I created for work. At Vonage, we actually have a web component. Nice. All right. Thank you all for thank you for letting me know you're there. All right. So the keypad, let's take a look at it. So it's just like a regular keypad. You can type in stuff here. You can hit enter, and then when that hit enter, that sends a custom event that the outer application can listen for. I'm not listening for anything. I just placed it here, but out of the box, this is what you get. And so I use OpenWC, and we're going to look at how OpenWC is. It just steps you through scaffolding your web component. So great. Like, so you can say, hey, everybody on the team, so that we're all on even playing field, let's agree to use this tool so that we know where all the files are going to be. We know where to look for them, right? And naming conventions, because you can do linting and there's testing and a whole lot of cool stuff. And again, they give you like best practices that you can follow and the whole team can follow. All right. Cool. All right. So then, yeah. So I use OpenWC and Material Web Components to kind of put it all together. We have the properties and attributes, right? So those are the things that go into the web component. So we have placeholder. If I ever wanted to change the text that shows up here when it's not in focus, that's the placeholder. I can set that from the outer application. Keys. Keys are the actual buttons here. Now there's the action text, which is this, enter. Now, when that thing is happening, we can have a cancel text. So if it's the type of thing where it is not instant and you need to hear back from somewhere, for like a call or whatever, then you can just set the cancel text to be like loading or whatever, or cancel if you want to end it. Then no asterisk will get rid of this key here. And then no hash will get rid of this one. And no display will get rid of where you enter in the numbers. Now that I try to keep it so that just by glancing at it, like you kind of know what, like, okay, there's not gonna be a display if I put this there. And then if I don't want the hashtag or the asterisk, it kind of would make sense to put just no whatever. And then remember that the outer application can call different methods within the web component. So we have one called create action, which kind of kicks things off, starts things off. Now, remember, going into it are the properties and attributes. You can outer application can call different methods on there, but what's coming out of your web component is the custom events. And so we have 3 different kinds. We have a digit added. So when I click this and that gets added, and then digit sent, like if I enter, and then when the action ended. All right, so that's kind of like the layout and what's happening with the web component. All right, so again, just as a recap, properties and attributes go into your web component. the outer user application can call methods on it. And then it can also listen for custom events that are coming out of your web components. Alrighty. Cool. So now, what will we be using to create our web components? It's going to use Open Web Components, like I said before. It provides guides, tools, and libraries for developing web components. I'm going to say web components like a million times. Google's Material Design Web Components. I'm not sure how many people are familiar with like Android and like a lot of things like that in the Google ecosystem, but let's take a look at that. So these are all the different components. So similar to like what EA had, they're making like their own design system. Google has their own. So they took their material design system and are converting them into web components. So you can kind of check out what they have so far. It's like an ongoing project. So you can see they have the button, checkbox, circular progress, dialogue. So let's take a look at the circular progress. So you can see here, just by putting in circular dash progress and then determine it, like it just works. And you can toggle it on and off. Cool stuff. You can view the source as well. So if you want to check that out. So yeah, you can see here, they're just using MWC circular progress. And they have the progress as 0.04. That's why it looks like it's a little bit more than a third. Where'd it go? Oh, did it open up in the same browser? Okay, never mind. But yeah, you can see why it looks like a little bit more. All right, cool. Let's see. So those are the material web components. That's what we're going to use. Back here. All right, so let's get started. So to get started with OpenWC, Open Web Components, there's a CLI. So all you have to do is just npm init at OpenWC. And it'd be cool if, again, if we could have people, because all you'd have to do is just kind of copy that. But let's go ahead and do that. So let me go into projects. All right, I'm in my projects folder. So I'm just going to paste that command right there. And let me make it this bigger so you can check it out. All right, so now that's the command. I'm going to run it right now. So what that's going to do is going to set up to help me scaffold what I'm looking for. So yeah, you can start or upgrade your web component project with ease. All our recommendations at your fingertips, because again, they're giving you like the best practice as they deemed that. So there's not like, oh, like in a team, be like, oh, well, no, we're always going with this person's thing. No, there's like a third party that's deciding that. So everybody can, decide just to give that power as far as like control over everything to a third party to decide what best practices are. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to scaffold a new project. But like you said before, you can upgrade an existing project. So let's do that. Now, you can actually create a full application with OpenWC. And I believe it takes a bunch of different like web components. I've never done it because I've always just created a web component. And cool, as you can see here, you can add linting. So ESLint and Prettier. There's also testing using Web Test Runner, which is pretty cool. I haven't played around with that too much, but it's really cool. And then you can demo it using Storybook. So you're able to run this application to scaffold it. And if you want to, you can have Storybook to show off your web component. And for people that may not be familiar with Storybook, Storybook is like an application where you can set dials. So you can have your web component and all the different iterations that it can do. You can have it where you can preview it in there. Pretty cool stuff. But for brevity's sake, we're not going to do any of that. So enter. Now, for all the people who like TypeScript, you can use TypeScript if you want. No, we're not going to do that for this one. Name the tag. So let's call it CityJS. Remember, it has to be can't be one word. India. Let's go with that. All right, CityJS India. So now it's going to show you the structure of it, because again, it's giving you the best practice. Like, hey, this is what we think will work, and so here it is. And do you like how it looks? And so you see, it's going to create a folder, and we're going to have some extension stuff for VS Code, the demo, the index.html for it. And we're going to have the source. This is where you're going to do most of your coding, right in that one. and some other config files and things. And this CityJS India, that ties the element name that you created, like the CityJS-India, to the class, which is the CityJS India, but camel case. So it hooks up the kebab case with the camel case. All right, cool. And then we have the license, index.js, the package JSON, and then the web dev server, which is kind of pretty neat. So now, do we want to write this to the file structure to the disk? Sure, why not? Now, we can also install with yarn or npm. And since we've been talking about npm, let's do that. And so we're just going to install that. Now, I would ask, how's everyone doing? How are you finding it so far? I see some super cools. Thank you. Wow. Thank you very much. How's it going so far? Like for people that weren't familiar with web components before, how are you liking it right now? Bam. See, it's done. And so again, it did the npm install. And so it's able to do that because people publish their packages to npm. And we're going to do that as well. So here we go. It did everything it needed to. So now all you need to do is run, just go into the actual folder that it just created for you, and you can do npm run start. Now let's take a look at what that looks like. So CityJS India npm, I'm thinking about food, run start. So what that's going to do is going to start up that web server, and it totally opened up in a different thing here. All right, so this is the sample application. Let me, I guess, zoom in a little bit. And it's just like a counter. It almost seems like counters are like the hello world of web components. Like anytime I see anybody do like a base thing, just kind of show off stuff, it's a counter. I guess because there's like functions that you can do. And then you can also set up to, if you reach a certain number, then it can send out a custom event. So there's all sorts of things. So it's kind of like a little hello world of it. And so you can see you can increment and the number goes up. So that is the base one. Cool. Let's see here. So let me stop that. All right, so now back to the slides. So now we also need to install the material design web components. So we can look at that. So it's cool because you can then use other people's like design tools to help make your thing look a little bit better. So they put in all the work into it. Another good one is the Adobe Spectrum web components. So Adobe, you know, like Photoshop, Illustrator, they actually use like web components when they ported over Photoshop to the cloud, like on the internet. You can use Photoshop on the internet officially now. And so we're going to install some web components from Google's material design system. So I'm going to copy this code, go back into here so I can install that. There we go. So I'm just installing the button, MWC button, and the text field. All right. Because it's a keypad. It's just buttons and a text field. All right. So we're going to install that while that's doing its thing. How's everyone doing? Y'all holding up? I really wish y'all could have kind of like joined along, you know, but yeah. I will, the next one, I will figure this out and we'll make it happen. Mark my words. All right, so now I installed it. Cool. Now let's take a look at the package, what's in there. All right, we're going to open a folder. Projects, city, yeah, they're here. Now, OpenWC have chosen to use lit as the like the library to kind of create the web components. All right. So again, they feel that like that's their best practice is to use lit. All right. Okay, sure. Now let's take a look at some files. Again, that's CityJS-India.js. You see, again, we have the custom elements.define that we've seen so many times before, because again, custom elements are one of the three that are needed to be able to be called a web component. So again, there's the shadow DOM as well, and the HTML templates / slots. I kind of count slots within templates because they're actually literally inside of a template. Like you can't just have a slot outside. Like you need it to encapsulate within a template tag. So I just say template. But if you see slot somewhere else, you'll know what that means. And so we're importing that class. You can see right there, it says class CityJS India from the site, from this file, which is in the source folder, this one right here. And that there you can see that it's using lit. So it's using HTML, which renders like the HTML, the CSS, and lit element is going to be the base class. Because remember before it was HTML element, but now lit has taken the HTML element and added some more stuff to kind of abstract out all that boilerplate that we saw previously. Remember all those listening for different things and all that stuff, and setting up the templates and all that, and cloning and then attaching the shadow DOM. You don't have to do any of that. Lit does that for you. So as you see here again, we're exporting the class and then extending, instead of HTML element, we're extending lit element. So it gives us like a head start. So now we're getting the different styles like CSS. Then we're getting the properties on which we need to listen for. Remember in the other one, it was like observed properties or something like that. Attributes. I think it was observed attributes. So this is pretty much kind of like doing that. These are the things you're going to be listening for. So we're going to listen for the title and the counter, right? Because remember, the title was that NR5 thing, and then the number is the 5. So yeah. Cool. Again, we have the constructor. So in the constructor, you're pretty much always going to call super. So what that's going to do, like it says, it's the base element class. It's going to take all the goodness from lit element and make it available in your application so you can use it. Cool. Then we're setting some initial values for title and counter. And then they have it just so we can increment it. And so they're just taking this dot counter and increasing it by 1 that we saw there. Which in title changes. So you see, here's the title. I think they passed in Mr. If we go to demo and the index.html, you can see here. So since we named it CityJS India, they called it that there. The title there. So you see hello OWC world. So that's being passed in. And since that's being passed in, that's overriding just the regular hello world. And then some light DOM here. And then CityJS India closing tag. All right. Cool. Back to here. And so, yeah, that's basically what it's doing there. Because before it would be hey there, but it wasn't hey there. It was hey OWC world. And that's because we set the attribute to be that outside in the outside application. And yeah. All right, cool. So that's what they give you. Now let's talk about the code for the actual web component. So now basically the same thing. So we have we're importing those same things from before, from lit elements, but I think now it's actually lit. So there's been a newer version since then. So instead of doing from lit element, you do it from lit, because they're kind of like, they combined it in 2.0. But I haven't updated my code. It's just been it still works. You get like a warning. So I'm going to have to eventually update it. And then we import the button and text field from material web components, material design web components. And then again, I just called it whatever you like or what have you. It extends lit element. So we're going to switch this whatever you like keypad out with the CityJS India. All right. And then we're getting the styles again, as you can see here. We're using a CSS custom variable to set from the outside. You can set that property, CSS custom property. You can set that. Otherwise, it's going to default to black. So yes, that's one way of kind of like styling. We'll talk about styling a little bit later. And then we have the container, which is like the overall thing. We have the button rows, so a whole bunch of stuff. So again, you can see we're using some CSS properties to set these things, custom CSS variables, basically. Who's heard of CSS variables? Let me know in the chat. We'll talk about that soon. Cool. And then we're just getting the properties that we want to kind of keep an eye on. So remember the no asterisk. See how it's like camel case here, but through lit, I'm actually just say, hey, the attribute that you need to listen for is actually this with the hyphen, the kebab case. That's maybe a little bit easier to read. And it's of type Boolean. It's either there or not, right? So then we have no hash again, similar situation. Same thing with the display. Now the action text is going to be of type string as well as the cancel text. Action started is either true or false. And then the digits, which is the type string, the actual things that get added. All right, so then I'm just setting the, again, calling super to get all the lit goodness. And then we're setting the initial values for everything here. All right, now we have some methods that we can call from the outer. Well, these aren't from the outer one because see, they have the underscores, so they're private. In TypeScript, I believe you can just write private and it'll just make it private for you. But this is kind of private, but it's just kind of known not to call that from the outside application because they want it to stay inside. And so you can see here, you're passing when you add a digit, you actually have a digit because that was what was pressed. And then you're adding to the other list of digits that digit. And then I'm sending a custom event of digit added. And then again, so you're sending the digit just in case if the outer application wants to know about it, because that's important for when you don't want that same display that comes with it. Let's say you have like a huge display or something, and you have like a little controller that you can pull up sites on and be able to enter in things. Like, I don't know, like those signs that have like the gas prices that are digital maybe. So you'd be able to just kind of type it in. You don't need to see it there because you'll see it on the actual screen. So that's kind of like the idea behind not having the thing, the display. Then something similar for digit send. So once you actually click the action thing, it will send a custom event saying digit sent. And that's all the digits instead of just the one. And then again, it bubbles and it's composed. Then you dispatch the event. And then the create action, which you can see there's no underscores before. So that means that the outer application can call it. And so let's say you want to, if you had like a timer and you weren't able to like press a button and it count down, you could launch the create action to get the action started. And then end action is pretty much the same thing, but opposite. So we have, it sends out a custom event action ended. And then it just sets the inner action started to false so that locally it knows within the web component, like, oh, this thing has changed, it's false now. Cool, because again, custom events are to let the outer application know what's kind of happening with the web component. And then we have some, so we're returning, like the render function returns HTML. And I'm not sure how many people, like if you get a chance, you can look up tag template literals. That is quite possibly like one of the coolest things to be added to the browser in recent times, at least in my opinion. And so what's happening is you're returning some HTML, and this just works with anything. Like I'm sure you maybe have seen the backticks, and if you do like a $sign, it'll actually like calculate what's in that the $sign brackets, and then return to you like some HTML or what have you. But when you put some text in front of it, that goes from being just a regular template literal to a tagged template literal. And tag meaning that that HTML is a function. And so what's happening is it's taking all the stuff that's within the backticks and it's doing some calculations or what have you on the back end. And as far as lit, what it's doing is it's like checking to see what changed, what hasn't changed, and trying to efficiently as possible re-render it and to be as quick as possible. So that being said, so we got that there. Again, if you look up tag template literal, pretty cool. And so, yeah, so we're just doing that here. Again, so it must return, it calculates whatever's in there. So we're checking, hey, is this the no display? Is that true? Is that in the attribute? Like, is that in the component? If it is, then we don't return the display. So that's why it's a blank. But if it does, you see we're returning some more HTML. And that's going to be the text field that we installed from material web design web components. And then the value, if the value changes, then you put like a dot there so you can kind of keep track of it. Because again, these are things that the HTML tag will look for so that it can make its best judgment on how to re-render stuff. So the more information you can give it, the better it will be. All right. And then we just have like the rows of buttons. So you can see 1, 2, 3. When you click them, it goes to the add digit and it sends the digit along with it. Cool. I just have them split out in rows. And then here, remember, there's that no asterisk attribute. And so if that shows up there, we return nothing if it's true. Otherwise, we're going to return a button and it's going to have the asterisk in it. Cool. Same thing. We had the 0 and then the hash, all the same stuff. It's like a pattern to it that you can hopefully see, and you'll get faster with it the more you work with it. Let's see. Then we have the last button row. And so this is if the action is started. Remember, the outer application can create the action, like it can get it started with that create action method. And so if it's true, it's going to return a button. But when you click that button, it's going to end an action, but it's going to show your cancel text. So if something is going on, it's going to show you the cancel text so you can stop it. Then, likewise, if it's false, that means no action has started. Then it's going to show you the action text, and it's going to send digits. Now, send digits, I don't remember if we looked at that. So send digits is just going to create a custom, what do you call it? Event. And it's going to have your digits in there. Like once you finish typing and you press like send, it's going to do all that for you. So that's what that is. Cool. And that's pretty much that. That's the code. So we're going to copy that like good programmers do. And let me, well, I just have to remember CityJS India, because I'm going to paste over everything. All right. So there's the code there. The spacing is kind of weird because see how everything's like all shifted over? That's just because of the way it's here. Let's see. So it's very important to make sure you change that, because so many times before I have forgotten to do that and it causes issues. Like it won't, because it's looking for a different name. Because remember, this file is connecting kind of like what shows up in the browser to what's in your code. And so it's looking for CityJS India for any time that there's a CityJS -India. And so it's important to make sure that that matches. All right, cool. That's that. Make sure I saved it. And there we go. So now we have the code. We got it written. Now, what can we do with it? How about we publish it to NPM? All right. So again, if you don't have the link, you can always go and do that. What else? Cool. Oh yeah. So if your first time doing it, you could do npm init and then set the scope. Now, the scope is important because it lets you like set yourself apart, because sometimes a person may accidentally type a wrong npm package or what have you, or there may be, if you didn't have scope, then you could have multiple packages with the same name or whatever. And so to kind of keep it a little more like I guess secure by the way that it's kind of like separating and putting everybody in kind of like separate spots through the scope. So you can initialize that scope with your username that you sign up for. Now, I already have that, and you can check if you have it as well. If you view the terminal here, and so it's an npm command. So npm who am I? And then you can see I'm logged in to npm as Dwane-Vonich, and that's going to be important coming up next. Now we need to update the README. Now the README, because again, we want to make sure we have the scope on so that ours can be accidentally confused with someone else's, because we all could create CityJS-India web components, but by us having our own scopes, it makes that possible. But in order to show that it's coming from somewhere else, you need the scope. And so for your people who are using your web component, they use the Readme to kind of show everything that's applicable to the web component, right? So now, see, you're not going to npm install CityJS-India. Remember, we have the scope, so it's going to be Dwane Vonage, if I could spell, slash. So at Dwane-Vonage slash CityJS-India. And then also when you're going to use it within your application, here we go. See, add that as well here. Oh. Here. And then you can see again, it's pointing to the CityJS-India.js. Again, the file that connects like the browser to your class through that custom element. All right, so let's save that. Cool. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm just going to keep on moving ahead. All right. Cool. I think that's it for that. Now, what's next? Oh, we also need to, I believe, that package JSON. That's kind of the instructions for your account. Package JSON. Here we go. All right. Now, again, the name, we need to change that because it's not just CityJS-India. It's at Dwane-Vonage slash CityJS-India. Okay, so save that, and then your version is like everything that changed. You have to change the version. It won't allow you to create. It won't allow you to publish this multiple instances of the same version. It's the difference. Cool. Yeah. So you see, we have material, design, the lit, and some stuff from see. Yeah, we have some you can that. Cool. And, yeah, I think it's good. We'll publish it. Publish is being published, and then by default, if you have access, I believe sets it to private, and so that way you always change it if you want the that make public. Yeah, cool. So let's go ahead and push it. Oh, yeah, my computer's slowing down. Huh. Not sure what that's about. Come on, let's go. Let's go. Okay, there it is. Just a little slow. All right, now we're gonna publish it. Maybe my internet is again. I feel the struggle of folks who have issues with video, because out of nowhere, like my video just kind of like yesterday, my whole internet dropped. It's probably me. All right, so there we go. We have the we published our web component, our CityJS-India web component. Awesome. Now, let's see if we can use it. All right. So now, here is pretty much like the code for it to be used in the JavaScript, right? So what you need is you look at polyfills if they're needed. Browsers now are getting really good, and so the need for polyfills have gone down quite a bit. Then we have remember that CDN unpackage? Well, anything that's published to NPM shows up in unpackage and other places, Skypack and JS Deliver and many other ones. And so So you can see the image. I'm going to replace that point that we just had, that we just created. And yeah, cool. Here we go. Now, so let's, I think I have this, we'll change it. Okay, here we go. So, what? My computer is not happy with me today. Okay, stop doing that. I think I'm pressing 20 times. There you go. Okay. So we called it. So remember, it's scoped to my NPM.js account. So that's why there's the @Dwane_Vonage. So we're going to change it. Remember, we called it CityJS-India. All right. And then remember that same file that connects the component name to your class, that is also CityJS-India. Like that. Cool. Now we'll call this one, because before it was called Dwane's Keypad, but now we're going to call it CityJS. Oh, come on. India. I'm just going to copy and paste it. My computer is acting up. Of course, I copy too much. All right, let me get rid of this extra bracket here. Okay, there we go. All right, so that should be everything there. Let's see. I'm going to show some other things you can change it up. So I'm going to do that now so they can show that it's actually a new component. And again, this is just vanilla JavaScript. If it looks like it's just a regular HTML element, that's because it is. The browser will look at it and be like, I'm not sure what this is. Oh, this is JavaScript that will tell me how to handle it if I come across it. And so it'll just handle it as if it's just it will just let the JavaScript like, oh, okay, you know what to do with this. So I'm gonna let you take the lead here. All right, I'm just replacing these things here. So when I uncommented them, check them out. So how's everybody doing? Is it okay so far? How's everyone doing? Alrighty. Okay. Oh, looks like I accidentally deleted thing there. All right, cool. So now let's check the results for there, hopefully. With my luck, who knows? Yeah, ooh, okay, good. Ooh. All right, so it's now. And we've actually, let me show you, inspect it. Eventually, at some point. Come on, no. There you go. Okay, that computer was not ready for a workshop today, apparently. Okay, hopefully this will load. Right. By the way, since we can't vote, if you start letting me know between Angular, React, or Vue, what would you like to see as a component? loading. Okay, that's gonna take some of this. I don't understand. Somebody say something in the chat, I'm sure. Because again, my computer is being super slow.
It has been a bit slow,
Okay,
but,
let's see.
but then it was okay, but then it went again slow.
Yeah, again, like where I'm at, I guess. But, but I don't know. The internet. I think maybe my computer. Would the internet make my computer run slow? I don't know, because it seems to be loading fine stuff. I don't know. I think it's just maybe too much happening, I guess, for the laptop. Okay, but okay, so this really, you can see, where is it? So yeah, so you can see here, that same unpackage, CityJS India, right? So we're calling that, and then here are elements, CityJS India. Then we have the placeholder, enter your number. So, I think, where's that showing enter your number? But you can see if it opens up eventually at some point. See, this is why I prefer to do these like in person. And hopefully soon we'll be able to. It's here that shadow root that we're talking about, like that pocket dimension where everything happens. If you can look, see it's open, you can look inside, and we have kind of like access to it through JavaScript to be able to do stuff with it. All right, so we have our container on the inside. And then you see here, this little thingy tag here, put that in there as kind of like a marker to like target it when things need to be updated. So you'll see that throughout it sometimes. Some people will actually add like classes and stuff to kind of keep track of things. They also do that. And then you can see we have a buttons here. And then the MWC, the Material Design Web Components, are also web components. They have their own shadow root as well.
Wayne, Dwane, can I ask you, is it possible to put down your camera? Maybe that increases the speed. So turn your camera off.
True. Okay, hopefully that's better. Let me know.
It sounds better.
Okay. So now, all right. So how's everything going so far? Is it kind of making sense and stuff? Like, folks following? Oh, someone's saying that there's no audio. Huh. Can you hear me, Iris? Iris?
Me, I can hear you properly.
Oh, okay. So, okay, people saying they can hear me. Okay. All right. Let's just go right through this. All right. Let's keep going on. And then you see again, we have another one of those like little, well, that's the one before. But yeah, so it's kind of cool to be able to kind of deep dive into the component and stuff. All right, so now let's take a look at some of the attributes when you apply different attributes. So now you can have multiple ones of these if you want in there, but I'm going to. Oh, I didn't show like what happens when you click. I think I do something. 2, 3, enter. Does it do anything? I don't remember if I set it. I probably didn't set anything to be done. Let me check out the JavaScript. It look like it's just console log some stuff. I don't think it's. Oh, a window thing should be popping up. I think my computer is just not sure what's happening. Yeah, like something's supposed to. Oh, you know why? Because again, remember the name is different. We don't have a reference to it yet. So you can see here we have keypad reference, but it's set for the old one, the Dwane's keypad. It is now the CityJS India. And it's just a regular tag. So you can use query selectors just like with any regular HTML tag. So we can save that. And then, so then everything else is based on the keypad reference here. So we have the event listener. And so we have the custom element stuff. And then, so what happens is it should pop up the window confirm and say down in the numbers. So let's do that. Okay. 1, 2, 3. You can also press these two. I have it to where you can like dial the numbers as well. So it does whatever. Enter. So now you see, now that we actually have a reference, we can actually listen for events and respond to it in the outer application. And then you can see dialing, connect call, okay for yes, cancel for no. So if I say okay, see how that enter turned into cancel. So then when we're done, it goes back to enter. And if we were to just enter, it pops up again. We'll say cancel, and it stays enter. Because it didn't create the action when we hit OK. Because remember, there's that create action method. Yeah. Cool stuff. All right. Yeah, so you can see right here, if the result, like if it's true, if you click OK, then keypad, the reference we have, we're saying, hey, create action, which turns it to action created to true. And that's why the button text changed to the cancel state. All right, cool. So now, yeah, anything that you all want to see as far as, because the next thing was going to be, you could vote for what you wanted to see, Angular, React, or Vue. And how much time do we have left? Hey, Aris, how much time do we have left about? My computer's not, there you go.
It's been long, but
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's really been good, and a lot of people have been watching from Twitter and here as well. I'd
Cool.
say like if we do another 15-20 minutes, okay?
Sounds good. Yeah, because we started like 8:30, and so it's like 10:45. So yeah, so we're on like 2 hours. So yeah, so we're almost done. And so yeah, so what I'm just gonna do, I'm just gonna go with Vue. So yeah, I really wish people could have voted, because it would have been cool, like you've been able to vote, and it would change, and you couldn't vote again. So we're just gonna go with Vue. But again, if I give this workshop again, I will get this working. All right. So if you go to custom elements everywhere, you can get a feel for how different like frameworks and libraries in JavaScript handle web components. So this is a really cool website, and they give things like, they test them and they give them like scores. So let's take a look at some of the here. I just kind of want to show you how to include the component that we just created into a Vue application. And I have a whole blog post on all of this, so you can check that out as well. All right, cool. All right, so this is the website, and I'm getting the beach ball. Here we go. All right, there you go. Now, custom elements everywhere, making sure frameworks and custom elements can be BFFs, best friends forever. And so you can see here, so for example, Vue actually looked like it dropped a little bit. View 3, because the one I had, when was that from? Because View 3, when I did it, it was like brand new. So it was like 3.00. So yeah, so see, this is View 2.6.12. So since then, it's gone from 100%. Come on. To 91%. And they'll kind of tell you what the issues are. So View 3 does not support listening to custom events with capital letters. So wow, that's kind of like a really specific thing that was kind of like left out. So they're that specific on far. So you lose points for that. And but they mainly because remember, the important things are what's coming in. So how does Vue handle data going into a web component? Does it have to have special considerations and things? And then also, how does it handle the custom events that come out of the web component? And as you can see, one issue now is that it doesn't support listening to custom events with capital letters, which is kind of like pretty random. All right, now React is not really known well for doing like well with web components, even though now with the experimental version of React 17, it has like it fully supports web components, but then again, it's behind like a flag experimental, and they mention it here. So here is like the experimental is like 17 point something or whatever, but you see that it scores 100 and passed all the tests. So it goes from 71% on 17.0.2 to the experimental to being 100%. And so now if you want to see web components be fully supported in React, you can contact the core team, because right now the core team has not reached a final decision on whether they will make the experimental version into React 18. So they know if they're going to have support. But your feedback, like I said, is important, and it can be helpful in making the decision. So you can find out more information on how you can pass feedback on if you want web components or not. And then so it just says that, hey, it handles data coming in and events out very well. And so you can see Angular is at 100%. Angular JS, which has been just recently deprecated, I believe, that's still, that version looks like it's always supported web components. Svelte, which I'm a big fan of, that passes all of it. Preact, Polymer, looks like it went down maybe. The collaborative listener names have issues with casing. So again, just like with Vue, the uppercase and lowercase look like it causes an issue. So yeah, so it does not support arbitrarily capitalized event names. So like camel case, caps with like all caps and then lowercase stuff, and then Pascal case. So it looks like you can only do, I guess, just lowercase. I don't know. Then hyperwrap, and then write. So there's a whole lot of different ones. And this is also a good way of like, oh, let me check out other like frameworks that maybe, and you may find something that works well with you, and this makes a lot of sense for you. And so here's Lit, and then here's Stencil as well, because again, you can use them web components in web components basically. So that's how they handle it. And yeah, Hyper HTML again, that was like one of the first ones I've used. And so yeah, so custom elements everywhere is a good place to be able to kind of see how your favorite framework stacks up and how it works with web components. All right, so let's take a look at what we need to do to include. Now, like we said before, there's Vue 2. That sounds funny. Vue 2 and then Vue 3. When I first initially did this, Vue 3 like just came out. And so it was still kind of like shaky as to what would actually happen. So going along with the same component, multiple use cases, the first use case was kind of like entering digits and maybe calling a phone number. But another one was being able to maybe use it to enter in a security code. So I wrote blog posts using the same element, same custom element, web component in different frameworks. Right now it's Vue, React, and Angular, and they're all doing like different tasks. So like the Angular one is like a quiz show, like you enter in your answer and it'll tell you if you're right or wrong. For Vue, it's because I like alliteration. So it's like vault. So it's like view and vault put together. And so you put in a security code. And so you type it in. So right now the security code is 1234, super secure. Let's go with a 4, 3, 2, 1. Enter that in. See, it says wrong answer, try again. Now we put in 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I want to show you what shows up. Hit enter. And then it says success, and you get the minion telling you you did a good job. All right, so let's kind of look at the code on what, to make that happen. Let's see. So view 2, there was a thing with view, because with a lot of frameworks, in order to get reference, because before, remember, we were just doing document.query selector. A lot of frameworks kind of like abstract that out. And so for a few of them, you have to have like a reference, right? And so for view 2, it's the same thing. Let me see something here. This is pulling up some notes on my very slow computer. Come on. But as you can see here, we have the keypad name. We're passing in the reference of keypad. Remember before, it was keypad was from the document.query selector of the name of the component. But here you don't have to worry about that. So that's reference, and then we're passing in our other attributes just as if they're just regular. Now the thing, and then also like placeholder, like since it can like change, there's like a variable that I put in as, because you see here there's no colon in front because that's just text. Whereas if you put a colon in front, that means that quit is a string, but placeholder is a variable. And then @ stands for like the events that it's listening for. So instead of add event listener, you put an @ and the event that you're listening for. All right, cool. And then you're just listening for digit sent. You pass it into digit sent. All right, that's its reference. Cool. Now, important to note is that Vue has a way to be like the same way that the browser just kind of like ignores templates. Vue has the same thing where you just tell it like, hey, you're going to come across this custom element. Don't worry about it. I got it. I got this JavaScript with me. It will know what to do. You just need to listen for these things that are in the attributes, right? We're going to play by your rules on how you want to listen for attributes and listen for events and set attributes. But we'll don't worry about, we'll get that to you our way, kind of thing. And then so you can see, so it's actually called view config ignored elements. So they kind of thought about it. And so I'm ignoring anything that has Dwane's hyphen whatever. So in our case, it'd be like CityJS hyphen whatever. And so that just then you create a new instance of Vue, an app from that, what the element that it needs to attach to, and then I'm passing in the data. So like the code 1, 2, 3, 4, that is what shows up here and what it knows to be true. The image, and so the vault, image of the vault that shows up first. And the placeholder, again, it's a variable. So it's not going to say placeholder. It said enter security code. I could make that string and pass it there, but I wanted to kind of show the difference, right? All right, cool. Then we have the methods. Again, the digits sent. That's what you can call on there. Let's see. So yeah, so enter the code. And that's pretty much it. And that's how it works. All right. You just have to set the reference and tell Vue, don't worry about it. Now, in Vue 3, they changed the way that you can ignore elements. Pretty sure I clicked that. Maybe I didn't. Here we go. Vue 3. All right. Now, spoke about Vue 2, Vue 3, and Vue 3. Yeah, even in my blog post here, I said Vue 3 has just come out and it's still shiny and new and changing. So I guess they changed it to where they can't listen to capital custom events. neither here nor there. Now, what the most profound change is that the ignored elements that we saw before in config is now is custom elements. So so you still do the same reference that we did before, same action text, same cancel, the same passing in like variables, and then also the digits, with the method that we're listening for. Yeah, and there's that. Cool. And now then we have the same stuff with the same data. All that stuff is pretty much the same. The methods, again, pretty much the same. But here, when you initialize the app, you're going to create an instance app from app view. So this is from like the app.view. So yeah, you're going to create an app instance. And then instead of ignored elements, it's going to be app config is custom elements. And then you put in, now it takes like a function tag. And so then you're saying like, well, tag whatever starts with that instead of like the regex thing before. And then you just mount the app to the element and that's it. All right, so there's that. Now, also in view 3, there was the composition API that came out. I believe it was view 3. And so with that now, that kind of changes stuff. So the view composition API was created to help address some of the limitations developers were facing as applications grew over time and became more complex. So I have a link to the documentation you can check out from the blog post. And so depending on how the application is compiled, how it compiles the template, that determines where to place the configuration. Remember that same ignored thing? So that kind of, depending on how it's being done, because there's like a just-in-time compilation, and so that's in a different place, or like on the fly, I guess it's also called. So what we saw before was on the fly, right? Now the composition API is using Webpack to compile the template, because before you could just put in view into like how you saw before, it was just in CodePen, and CodePen doesn't compile your code, right? But now with the composition API, you need something like Webpack to compile your code, because so your is custom element, since it's not done on the fly and you can't do it on the app, you have to go into the config. So whether it be Webpack, Snowpack, or whatever it is using the parcel to bundle, there should be a config file that you'll be able to put this in, this code here in. So like webpack.config.js, you could look for something like that. And then in the rules, in the view loader, the options is the compiler options, and then is custom element as the same tag function from before. And so, yeah, there's that. And then, oh, and so then also the ref, do I have that here? I don't have that there. But the ref tag that we were doing before in the composition API, it does a lot more. So it includes tracking other values and not just DOM elements. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Like all the stuff in a blog post if you want to read it more. And I have links to the documentation. And so, all right, so we did the view stuff, right? So now you can see how to include your web component in a framework. Now, I really wish you could answer that. How's it going so far? Are web components becoming more awesome to you? Is it coming along? Let me go to
definitely.
Nice. Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, I see some thumbs up. Nice. Thank you very much. All right, so let's talk about, because hey, it's all well and good that we're using like material web design, but how about if we wanted to style it ourselves? Now, since they're just regular HTML elements, you can just use CSS to style it, right? But now you may have an issue because remember, the shadow DOM is kind of like a barrier to that. Because remember, it contains the gross, but also keeps the gross from out kind of coming inside as well. But there are a couple of things you can do to kind of like pierce little holes so you can get some of that gross in or out. So there's a couple of things. There's CSS Custom Properties, which we spoke about before. Remember when we saw the MDN and we had like all those like custom properties to change things. And then there's also part, which I'm partial to. Okay, never mind. All right, so let's go over CSS Custom Properties quickly. I have a link to MDN so you can read out more, but basically you can set on your button for this example, the background color. So you're using a CSS Custom Properties or CSS Variables, they're also known as. So you have the variable, and then we have this, so it's like a function, the variable that we're the custom property, my element hyphen button hyphen color, right? And so otherwise the default is red. So in your root of your CSS that kind of like cascades towards everything, you set your my element button color to blue, so that whenever the CSS sees my element button color, if it's set to something, it will set it to that. Otherwise, it'll go to the default. Now, this is cool. All your buttons are going to be the same color. But what if you wanted to add border radius, or even a border, or even a color, or even a background color? As you can see, it can spiral out to where you're going to need more and more custom variables just to be able to give the user options, right? So the internet thought about that, and since it's always wins, they have part. And so part is like a CSS pseudo selector, I believe. And so what's cool about it, so there I have a link, and then there's also a blog post that kind of like goes into how we got here. It's a really good blog post, and it's cool. Is Monica Dens? I'm just gonna say Monica D. I'm gonna mess up her last name. I believe she works at Google, but you can check out the blog post. Now, instead of having to set all those custom variables, you just say, hey, in my component, the button, I'm going to give it the part name button, right? And so when I do my styling, I just go with my custom element that the button is in, and to target it, I just say, hey, that part button, apply this CSS. And it's just regular CSS. It's just that now you have part, it knows where in the shadow DOM to attach. So that brings me to something I've been working on at work. So we created the client Sdk Ui Web Components. And so I work with like the conversation client SDK. And so with the web components, I thought it would be cool if we could encapsulate the different parts of like a chat app, so that you'd be able to just, oh, I want the members, cool. Let me just put VC-members. And it knows what it needs to do. It knows to listen for members joining, members leaving. You don't have to worry about any of that. You just pass in the conversation that it needs to know about, and it'll do all the listening and actions for you. Same thing with messages. So it'll list the messages for you. The input, which on the website is what I actually used for the my workshops.live, was the VC text input. And then we have like a typing indicator. So I created all this, and I put it out there, and I was like, all right, it's out there. Maybe people will like it. Apparently people did like it, and they wanted to be able to style it. So that's when I came across the part. And so you can see here. So here's the VC text input, similar to the one on the website. And so just let me uncomment this. So now this is just going to change. Hopefully that uncomments. Oh, come on. Okay, I'm just going to do it old school way. Get rid of that. And get rid of that. So now I have that activate. Look at that. It's almost like as if it's a brand new element. It's an ugly element, but hey, it's new. It's a new element, right? Just styled differently. Same web component is styled differently. And so you see here, I have the part button, which is what I named this button. It has the color red, a 2-pixel green solid outline. The font size is 30, you see it's bigger, and the background color is transparent. You can't see it because it's white either way, but the color is transparent. And then here, I named the placeholder part, the input, I call it, guess what? Input. So If I want to target it, I just say part input and just use regular CSS to my heart's content, whatever I want to do. All right, cool. Now let's take a look at the VC members. Now this is interesting because while I was doing my research, I found out that apparently you cannot do like normally when you want to style like UL unordered lists, you can come here. You can normally do like odd and evens, right? But with that, you can't do like part and then odd even. So you, in that case, I had to use the CSS variables for that. So just kind of beware that you may need to use it, but just kind of for your use case. And yeah, so the LIs are all what you call it, call them LI. The actual UL, the overall unordered list is UL. And so you can see I changed the list style, the border, and yeah, it's just CSS. It's kind of amazing. Now let's take a look at the thing we've been working with, which is the keypad. Now this is cool because I can, oh, come here, oh, come on. Let me get rid of this. So you see how it drastically changed? Pretty cool. And so I removed buttons. I made them circular, changed the color. And then even here, I added little icons there. And that came from just the HTML. Because again, it's just, I passed in the keys that I wanted. So if I didn't want it to show up, I put it in as blank. Put in the arrow keys and I have the little pew with the emoji. All right, cool. So that basically does it for me. I want to thank you all for hanging out and sorry for the technical difficulties, but we made it through. If you want to, you can check out the blog series here. I guess since you can't actually interact with it, let me just, I'll put it in the chat room. But you can always go back to the website. I will fix it and make it to where we can get this worked out. And
we will show this tomorrow as well.
Mark my words. All right. And then also, so you can check out my website. If you can check, I have a whole bunch of different random projects. And then more importantly, you can check out our APIs. So let me, developer.vonage.com. And then, see, I can't show the coupon code like on stream. So that's why I made it to where you're able to click it and then you'll be able to see the coupon code and use it. But you know, you can't give the internet nice things without people messing it up. So once I fix it, you'll be able to go back and you can DM, I guess. I'll change the password and you can DM CityJS Conf Twitter for the new password. But yeah, there's all that. So you get like a 10 euro coupon code. And yeah, so that's it. Thank y'all for hanging. Hopefully you find web components awesome as I do. And maybe you'll want to continue. Feel free to reach out to me if you want to talk anything web components. And yeah, thanks again. And y'all have a great day. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Dwane.
Oh,
really
check us out in the booth. I got to do my my Vonage spiel. So check us out tomorrow at the booth, giving away a MacBook Air. Like I started out in coding boot camp with a MacBook Air, and that got me through. And so it's really, so it's a great opportunity to step up the game because you can even see like my computer's all, so yeah, so a brand new MacBook Air would be nice. And yeah, so see you all tomorrow at the thing. Have a great time at the conference. And yeah, hit me up if you need anything. I'm really looking forward to being able to do this in person, so it wouldn't be as bad. The internet is cool and all, but you know, being able to kind of communicate with people in the same place will be great. So at some point, hopefully. So if I'm in your area, say hi. Oh, and you can check out, I have another website where it's like a traveling log. And so it kind of maps out. You know what? I'll show it. Like I'm whatever. I got a couple of minutes. Anything else did you want to say? So Clarice, did I miss anything or are we good?
I think we're good.
I'm bad at like
I can send you the final recorded video, and you can cut some parts, maybe when we had technical difficulties, and we can play that tomorrow so everybody can see it again.
Cool.
Is that okay?
Sounds good. That sounds like me. I mean, I appreciate y'all for sitting through this. So yeah, so again, check us out at the booth. Talk to us for the coupon code. That's another thing. You could talk to us and we get the coupon code from us tomorrow. And yeah, and then so yeah, this is just a website I created that can like to chronicle my journeys and stuff. So I'm looking forward to hopefully meeting some folks. So make that happen. All righty. So I think that's it. So yeah, so come by, talk to us for the coupon code. Is there anything else like the chat? Like it jumps around. Is that it? I think. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
thanks. It's just it's like nothing.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah, of course my computer. So yeah, so I just make random projects. I don't know. Just randomly make stuff. I'm working on a new version of this to include live streaming. So I'm gonna start doing some live streams from different places. So yeah. And I'm a big fan of like 360 like videos and photos. So I take 360 like photos of stuff. It's probably gonna take forever to load. I think this is me at the airport waiting to yeah, early morning flight. But yeah, I make random projects. So it's cool to be able to talk to other people and their projects and see what they're working on and help them out and things. So I just take random stuff, things like the hotel room.
Dwane,
Yeah, I'm gonna keep.
I will have to go.
Tell me to shut up. So
I will have to go, but
yeah, you gotta take me out. So yeah.
I will. Let's talk tomorrow, and yeah, I will chat to you a bit later about some other ideas that I have. Okay.
Sounds good. Sounds great. And thanks again for having us. And I really appreciate y'all. And feel free to let me know anything that you ever need. Let me know.
Okay. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate y'all.
Bye.